So this evening, Trustee Collard will be honoring the land.
Halton, as we know it today, is rich in history and modern traditions of many First Nations and the Métis. From the Anishinaabe to the Attawaddaron, the Haudenosaunee, and the Métis, these lands surrounding the Great Lakes are steeped in Indigenous history. As we gather today on these treaty lands, we have the responsibility to honor and respect the four directions: land, waters, plants, animals, ancestors that walked before us, and all the wonderful elements of creation that exist. We would like to acknowledge and thank the Mississaugas of the New Credit First Nation for sharing their traditional territory with us.
Thank you, Trustee Collard. Are there any declarations of possible conflict of interest? Seeing none. Now we are up to the agenda. Could I have a motion to approve the agenda? Trustee Reynolds, seconded by Trustee Chowdhury. Okay. Is there any discussion on the agenda this evening? Okay, I just have a point to make. I just want to note that Trustee Pappin, as I mentioned, will be late this evening, and she would like to be part of the discussion around the boundary reviews. So as we come to that item, I request that we have a little flexibility in how we manage that item, as if she has not arrived quite at that point, so she can address and debate the motion as well. So all in favor of approving this evening's agenda? Oops. That passes unanimously. Thank you very much. Normally we have our Inspire Awards now, but we aren't presenting any this evening. Please do continue to nominate people or organizations who support our students and their achievements through exemplary caring, initiative, innovation, and creativity. We accept nominations online at the HDSB website. We have no delegations this evening, but we do have two presentations. First up is 231 Summer Capital Projects Update. Superintendent Pachetti.
We have called this What We Did This Summer, and it's a informal look at some of the work that we did this summer at schools through the school renewal program, as well as a few other programs undertaken through school renewal. And just to say that people worked very hard this summer, not only the facilities team, but custodians who had to deal with the mess, and also a few of our maintenance trades who pitched in to help do some general handy work to help support some of these projects. So a lot of people were behind doing all of this work. So for your pleasure and information, sorry, I don't have a soundtrack. I was trying to think of one, but that was beyond my technological abilities. So let me just put us into slideshow mode. Okay, and so this summer, under the school capital renewal program, we completed 224 projects. So there was a total of 310 projects approved under the renewal program, and there are another 38 projects that are going to be worked on this fall that we intend to complete by the end of December. And some projects that we just could not complete, either because the scope was too large to get planned and completed in time, or because we also saw an increase in prices and thought that these were projects that we should probably look to retender. those projects will be carried forward, and you will see them reflected in the next renewal report that will be coming to board. We hope in November. We're trying to get ahead of things a little bit so we can get out and get better pricing earlier in the new year. So this is a sample of some of the projects that we did. So we tried to capture a project, a photo per trustee ward. New roofs, new rooftop units, paving. Okay, they're not tremendously sexy projects, but this is the kind of thing that makes the building work well. So new paving, new line paving. A new outdoor play area in Brand Hills, which also included us relocating and building a long jump pit to current standards. New lockers. New cubbies for childcare. I put this in for you, Trustee Gribitz. This is the new cooling tower at CH Norton, and we had a couple hiccups getting it started, but it did what it was supposed to do come the start of the school year. New roofs, new kitchen. This is for the Parent-Child Center in Oakwood. Another outdoor learning center. A new pedestrian path to schoolyards, and you will probably see a few more of these jobs brought forward, recommended for next summer, because we are trying to address some safety concerns about how, there we are encouraging kids to walk to school, but then they have to cross parking lots, busy parking lots, or school bus lanes to get to the back of the school where the schoolyard is. So, and that just has to do with how the school was designed many years ago. So we are going to be bringing forward more of these projects to do over the next few years. New lights, and these are LED lights. So the advantage with these lights is you don't, not only are they brighter, but you don't have the maintenance requirements. And these are called high bay lights. So in order to change them, you have to get a cherry picker in there. So putting an LED saves us not only on the energy, but also on the maintenance costs. New washroom partitions, and we did a fair amount of washroom upgrades, washroom renovations, and the huge improvement from some of the older partitions. We have a bridge, and it's a beautiful little bridge. It's the Robert Little pedestrian bridge. It's quite lovely, actually, and I think we could maybe earn some money if we were to charge people for wedding photos on that bridge. New windows. Another kitchen project for the Woodview Center. This may not have a lot of meaning, and believe me, the whole has been covered up, but this is one of our building automation system controls, which we have been slowly upgrading through our schools, and we'll be bringing a report back to board with regards to our solar program, what we'd like to recommend. And these building automation systems are a key part of us being able to find ways to fund putting solar on schools, because these building automation systems helped us to control the temperature, the humidity in schools, maintaining optimal comfort for the occupants, but also finding energy savings through an automated system. So while it may not look particularly sexy, this little thing here has a lot of cost saving for the board. We don't have anything to show for Milton Ward number 1. A new music room, and these are great rooms. They not only provide storage for musical instruments, they're bright, they have soundproofing throughout the room. I've been to visit this one in particular. It's just great. A beautiful outdoor seating area and play space. New exterior doors, which makes our schools look so much fresher and brighter. And also our energy saving features, since you no longer can see daylight at the bottom of the door, which is a good thing. A new gym floor, and this is a rubberized sports floor. Oops, Sorry, I think I went wrong direction there. This is Craig Kielberger, the classroom addition, which was completed and occupied for September, and the greenhouse is currently, as you can see, still under construction, but will be completed soon. We also put in some additional bleachers at the school. Viola Desmond under construction, and if you were to go by, you'd, even from when this picture was posted, you would see further work on the building. This is an accessibility feature. This is a ramped transition to assist with wheelchair access to the building. And this is, again, something that we will be including in the next renewal plan as we go through our schools, looking where we can do those types of accessibility projects. MMR. Nelson. Not often I show the demolition, but it was a pretty impressive demo project. And now we're in the process of finalizing site plan approval and getting building permit to begin the next phase of construction. And that's it. And happy to respond to any questions you might have.
Trustee Daniele.
Thank you. I have a few. Can we explain why no love for Milton Ward 1? Is that, but that, yeah. But the other questions that I did have, first of all, thank you, because I know some of the other projects that got done, such as a much needed fence at Martin Street, things like that, you went above and beyond to do that, and I appreciate that. But I did have a couple questions. Milton District High School had a fire last September, and it's my understanding that that damage has still not been completed, and I wondered what the status on that was. And I did have another Milton-based question for you.
Certainly. Thank you for that question. So the two rooms that were damaged in the fire are not completed yet, but that is in part because there are other improvements that were requested for those rooms, and that included putting windows. Those rooms do not have windows, so 2 new windows in each room. And as a result of doing that, we also had to apply for a building permit, and that took a little bit longer. However, there are a bunch of other projects that were completed over the summer in that building. So while we didn't get the 2 rooms completed, they're on schedule to be turned over, I believe, by the end of November, but I'll get a double check on that. There were other projects done in the building.
Thank you. And as a follow-up, speaking of those other projects, I know that the new lockers are very, very much appreciated on the first floor. But are you aware about the delay in the remaining lockers? And from that, the rest of the renovation of Milton District High School, apparently they only have enough lockers for the grade 9s at this point, and the rest have been delayed at the supplier. And I was just wondering, in those circumstances, when a supplier doesn't meet the demands, what are our options? Because I'm getting some upset parents because grades 10 to 12 have to carry everything with them throughout the day. So I'm just curious. Well, that was a question that was posed to me. What are our options? So
I'd have to look into the details of that because I don't want to, misspeak. And whether there are any particular circumstances that cause the delay. For example, it could be that the number of lockers was changed halfway through the process, and that may have required the contractor to then go back and get back into the queue for the manufacturing of lockers, but I'll find out that for you. In terms of penalties, we don't have a penalty clause in our contracts per se. We have non-performance language in our contracts, so if a contractor does not meet our requirements, we go through an evaluation process, which is part of the broader public procurement process, and eventually we can take those kinds of contractors or vendors off our list. But usually, to impose a penalty clause, you also have to be able to provide a reward clause. And for publicly funded projects, that's not something that we would normally do.
Okay, that makes sense. If you could look into the delay and get back to me, I would greatly appreciate it. And once again, thank you. I know some amazing things happened in Milton over the summer, and I really do appreciate it.
Trustee Oliver.
Thank you. Through you, Chair. I'm wondering if it would be possible to get a listing by ward in the types of projects that have taken place over the summer and maybe are happening in the fall. I think that'd be great for us to be able to relay that to our schools and our constituents. And my second point is, I actually have, and this is a good time to raise it, I guess. I have an inquiry from one of my constituents. It's actually Emma, who's a student at Abbey Park. And she is an athlete, and she's concerned about the quality of the field at Abbey Park High School. That's Ward 4 Oakville. She says the field has a few issues that she'd like to bring up. There is a hill in the center of it. The goalposts aren't lined up, and the track is 8 feet short. So it seems like that needs to be addressed. There was some questions around perhaps getting lights in the field, but I think that the school acknowledges that there might be bylaw and neighbor issues around that. And the students really would like to see a scoreboard. So I just wanted to raise that to your attention, given that she raised that with me, and perhaps we can chat about what can be done.
So thank you, and thank you for bringing that to my attention. We can certainly look at the field and see what could be done, or whether it's an overhaul of the field to address grading issues and so on. So we have people that can look at that. Adding a scoreboard, I'd have to check and see whether we have done that in the past for schools. I know at the former board where I was, what the renewal program could do is provide the conduit out to the field, and then typically the schools would fundraise for a scoreboard. But again, I'd have to go back and see what our practice is here at Halton. And for sending the list out, I can certainly do that. You can have it tomorrow morning.
Thank you.
Trustee Clark.
Thank you very much for your report. I just want to say thank you for all the hard work that you've done over the summer. I am a Nelson student myself, so I understand that these projects go on sometimes during the middle of the year, but at the end, we're all very much looking forward to what the new campus will look like, and we're all very, as on behalf of students, I'm just very happy that we are making these adjustments to make school a little bit better.
Okay, seeing no one else on the list, I actually have a couple things to say. I want to mention that I really appreciate the staff time and the attention to the C.H. Norton project in the spring, all the updates in the summer as it was progressing, and then the troubleshooting of the heat pump the first week of school. A very vocal community, and I'm sure that your staff heard directly from them as well, and everybody is glad that it's now working properly. And I also just wanted to mention that I was in Robinson last night, and I was very impressed with the foyer. It looks beautiful, and I understand, talking to some students, that it is very, very well used, especially at the lunchtime. So that's great. That space has been there a long time, but now it's being used appropriately, so that's wonderful. So thank you very much for all the work that's been going on. My jaw dropped a bit when I saw the number of projects that were completed. That's fantastic, and thank you to you and your staff. I'm sorry, Trustee Oliver has something else to say.
Yeah, sorry, my apologies. I forgot to raise this when I spoke earlier. I did want to thank you for the work you've done at West Oak Public School around the pedestrian walkway to the playground. I'm not sure if you're aware, but last year the school worked really hard with the parent community, including the bylaw officers around ensuring safety to students walking to school. The crossing guard there was a long-term crossing guard. She was actually a recipient of our Inspire Award as well for the great work she was doing. But there was a time when things were a bit touchy around some of the rules around kiss and ride and parking and where people could walk and couldn't walk. So I'm pleased to see that this happened, and I'm not sure if there's anything more that will be happening at that school or not. But this is a really great start, and thank you.
And Vice Chair Al Harrison, thank you.
Thanks very much. Through you, Madam Chair, I just wonder if there's a plan to communicate with the community in some way, in some high-level way, just to indicate the breadth and depth of the work that's been done in local schools over the summertime or over the last little while, because it's often parents who drop off outside wouldn't necessarily be aware of their rehabbed office or washrooms or whatever the case may be. And I think just in terms of building public confidence, it might be a great thing to let them know. Thank you.
Associate Director Bogue.
Yeah, through you, Madam Chair, I think that's an awesome suggestion. We could do a news release, and I wonder if Superintendent Pichetti would make that slideshow also maybe available on our board website.
Yes, thank you. Yes, actually, we had thought about putting this on our board website, and perhaps we can look at, in fact, a more detailed list of the renewal projects that were completed over the summer, which are there by school, maybe that could also go on the website so parents could have a look and see.
Oh, Trustee Chowdhury, thank you.
Thank you, through the chair. I just want to echo Trustee L. Harrison's comments. You already mentioned the board website. If I can suggest the Twitter account as well for information, in particular, just photos of what's going on. I think that would help most of our communities. So thank you.
Thank you. Again, that exhausts our speakers list. Okay, we are now up to our next presentation, and that is the EQAO results. Associate Director Bogue, welcome.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through you two trustees, this is a very high-level summary of our EQAO results from last year. These results, I think trustees are aware, just became public today. They were actually considered preliminary results up until the end of yesterday, and in fact, we got news late yesterday that one of our data points changed. So that's sort of why the province likes this to all roll out at the exact same time after they've done their due diligence. Our results from last year are very good. You can see the data there. If you look at grade 3 reading, writing, and mathematics and grade 6 reading, writing, and math, you'll see that our trending is very much in line with the provinces. +1, -1, we go up a little bit. When the province goes up, we dip a little bit. You'll see in grade 9 academic mathematics, we slipped a little bit, but still at 91%, a pretty substantial score. Our applied mathematics, a little bit of improvement there, and a little dip along with the province on the OSSLT. We are planning to bring you the more detailed report with some disaggregated data where we'll provide a little bit more context to the numbers, and we'll provide a little bit more detail around some of the subgroups of students, that sort of thing as well. So at this point in time, I'm happy to take any questions that trustees may have of sort of a higher level nature, if you will, and then we'll provide some more detail at the next board meeting.
Are there any speakers for Associate Director Bogue? No? Okay, so I would like to just say that I was impressed with the EQAO scores. I mean, I don't think we tooted our horn enough. Even just looking at the overall numbers, anywhere we dropped, the province dropped as well. So relatively, we're doing really well, and we are consistently above the province. So congratulations, for all the work that we've been doing. I think that when you break down the numbers, we'll also see some great shortcomings in those specific groups as well. So thank you so much.
And thanks for saying that, Chair Grabantz. I think we often get, because we're so used to our numbers, we are a very high-performing board. There's no question about it. We get used to them, and we can be sometimes a little bit more critical around areas that we got to get that up a little bit higher or tweak this. But there's no doubt this is a good news story. So thank you very much.
Before you go, Trustee Harvey Hope has something to say.
Just a request for when you come back with more information. I was just quickly. Somebody posted the link to the EQAO website on one of the groups I monitor. And in that, when you go into the school-by-school data, there is a statistical breakdown of number of students who are English language learners or how long they've been in Canada, those kinds of things. And it goes by school, board, and province, and I just am asking in advance that perhaps that get explained a bit, because I was just looking at the numbers and the statistics doesn't quite look, so I'm wondering whether some of the statistics for the whole school versus just the kids writing 3, 6, and 9. So that's just one of my questions, because again, kudos to all the staff, because in a couple of these cases, the board has a percentage of students that are English language learners, and yet them achieving the provincial standard in reading and writing in grade 6, for instance, is fantastic. And that means they've had additional challenges in order to get even to that point. So, when you dig into the statistics and you see how, if you've got 22% are English language learners and still 95% are hitting the provincial standard, that's like, wow, because they've not only taught the regular curriculum, but also caught them all up. So those kinds of digging it down would be interesting to see as well. Thanks.
And we can try to add some clarity to that. And the numbers that we will share around English language learners or students with special education needs are only students that wrote the assessments. Yeah.
Okay, so there are no more speakers. Thank you very much, Associate Director Bogue. Now we're going to move up to our consent agenda items. Do any consent agenda items require any discussion? I don't see anything. Oh. Trustee Harvey Hope.
Yeah, in the minutes, 5.7 under committee reports, I think there's a sentence that's somewhat contradictory. When I said suggested appointing Amy Collar to the audit committee with Trustee Chowdhury having opportunity to be an observer as a member of the committee, it should be as an observer. You can't, not both at the same time.
Okay. Seeing nothing else, I'm going to put the motion on the floor. So be it resolved that the Halton District School Board approve the consent agenda action items and receive the information for September 19th, 2018. Moved by Trustee Pappen, seconded by Trustee Chowdhury. And is there any other discussion at all? Seeing none, all those in favor? Okay. Trustee Amos is listed, but and Trustee Pappen, can you complete your? Thank you. Okay, I'm going to end voting. And that passes unanimously. Thank you very much. Okay, and we are now up to our ratification action items. So Vice Chair Al Harrison, do we have any business from private session that requires approval?
No, we don't.
Okay, thank you very much. We are now up to action items for this evening. Number 421, 2018-19 LTAP School Boundary Review Report 18109 revised on page 43 of the board package. Mr. Renzella, welcome. Before we get started, I understand that that people would like to, I've had conversations with people. Is there a motion to divide the question? Yes. Trustee Pappen and seconded by Trustee Harvey Hope. Okay, so we're going to go through each one of these items separately. I'll put each one of them on the table. Okay, so we'll start with the first one. Be it resolved that the Halton District School Board directs staff to undertake an elementary school boundary review. Oh, actually, I'm sorry. Before we do that, we have to vote that we can divide the question. Hold on. So if you could please vote to divide the question. Okay, I'm just going to end the vote there. That passes unanimously. Thank you very much. Okay, so now I'm going to put that first one on the table. Be it resolved that the Halton District School Board directs staff to undertake an elementary school boundary review for the new Oakville Northeast Number 2 public school with an expected completion date of no later than February 2019, moved by Trustee Harvey Hope, seconded by Trustee Oliver. And is there, oops, hold on a second. Is there any discussion on that at all? Okay, seeing no discussion, we're going to vote on this first one. All those in favor? And I'm going to end that vote. Okay, that passes unanimously. Okay, I'm going to move on to the second one. Be it resolved that the Halton District School Board directs staff to undertake an elementary school boundary review for the Evergreen community north of Dundas Street and new developments located on Thomas Alton Boulevard and Valera Road with an expected completion date of no later than February 2019. I'll move that. Anybody want to second that? Trustee Collard? Okay, is there any discussion at all on that? Okay, seeing none. All those in favor? And that passes unanimously. Thank you very much. Number 3, be it resolved that the Halton District School Board directs staff to undertake a school boundary review for ERA 102, which includes John T. Tuck Public School, Pauline Johnson Public School, Ryerson Public School, and Tecumseh Public School with an expected completion date of no later than June 2019, moved by Trustee Pappen, seconded by Trustee Collard. And Trustee Collard.
Thank you. Through you to Associate Director Bogue. The boundary review calls for the boundary review to only occur with the schools within ERA 102. However, I believe some of the students living in ERA 102 attend schools outside of 102. And there may be students outside of 102 that attend schools within 102. And I just want to make sure that we're not going to exclude any students who ought to be included in that review.
I'm looking at General Manager Renzella. I think we're talking about the schools. We may have, in any boundary review, we may have kids that are going to school outside of the area that we need to certainly consider, but I think we're looking at the schools.
Correct.
Mr. Renzella?
Yes, through the chair to Trustee Collard, yes, we would be looking at the schools and their respective catchment areas in terms of the boundary review. And as trustees recall, as part of their boundary review process, the school boundary steering committee will kind of even fine tune some of these schools as well moving forward. There may be some direction from members of the committee that we potentially could include other schools, and we want to do that at the beginning of the process, and rather than going through an extensive doing it after the fact, which has caused problems. So we'll deal with it at that initial start of the process.
Go ahead.
Okay, because my concern is that the way the motion is worded, it limits it to those 4 schools, and if another school needs to be pulled in, we ran into difficulty with the boundary review for 103 several years ago, and I don't want us to go through that again where we're afraid to pull in a school that's not listed or a community that's not listed. So if we could please put a notation in the minutes that this may not be limited to those schools. Thank you.
Go ahead, Associate Director.
And I'm just looking at Mr. Renzella as well. I think within our administrative procedure, that is within the purview of the steering committee, correct? If we need to include other schools?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Trustee Pappen.
Thank you, through the chair, to Associate Director Bogue and Manager Renzella. I would like to speak to this motion and the effect it will have on my community. Thank you for the revision that made it possible for the expected completion date to be changed. A completion date of June 2019 takes away some of the urgency in making a decision of this motion today. I am grateful to the staff time needed to complete an effective boundary review and would provide the courtesy of time to digest the information and possibly brainstorm with the community to come up with an acceptable solution to the concerns around enrollment within the elementary schools in ERA 102, in particular John T. Tuck, Pauline Johnson, Ryerson, and Tecumseh. These schools have faced a French immersion boundary review, and the communities within which they reside were affected by the program and accommodation review in the last 4 years. The impact on the community has been stressful and not necessarily a good stress like opening a school. Since there is no urgency to completing the boundary review, which is reflected in the change of the completion date to June 2019, I'm wondering if we could delay voting on the motion 18-1009 number 3 until the beginning of November. This will still give staff ample time to complete the review by the target date, but more importantly, it will give the community time to ask questions, review the current data, and participate in discussions at the school level about their concerns. Therefore, I would like to revise the motion to delay voting until the board meeting on Wednesday, November 3rd, 2018.
So this is a motion to defer. Okay, does anybody second that motion? Trustee Reynolds? Okay. Is there any discussion on the deferral? Okay. Trustee L. Harrison?
Thank you. So through you, Madam Chair, I just want to understand what the implications of deferring or carrying on as we are will be from your perspective, and also from the perspective of what you understand from the community. Are you thinking about, okay. Yes.
Oh, I thought you were asking Trustee Pappen. I apologize. Well, in terms of the, I think the intention of the deferral, or why we moved it from February 2019 to June 2019, would be to start the process once the election of trustees are over. So we have a continuity of trustees as members of the Boundary Review Committee and the School Boundary Review Committee. So the process would not likely start until December, January of next year. Moreover, I do want to indicate that the process is similar to what we've done in the PAR. There would be a committee struck with the affected superintendents and trustees, and then moving forward with the BRC, where we would explore the issues at hand, and through that process would determine what the community feedback is. By deferring to November, as I said, I don't know what would be accomplished by doing that, because the intent would be to start this process after the elections, where we have a little bit more definitive idea of who the representation are, the trustee representatives is going to be. So I hope that answers your question.
Thank you.
Okay, Trustee Chowdhury.
Through the chair to Trustee Pepin, I'm trying to understand your motion, because the current motion doesn't have a definitive start date. It has a definitive end date. So, in fact, I'm trying to understand your motion's relationship to the current motion on the table.
Through the chair to Trustee Chowdhury, I wanted to put a start date in place, so I didn't want the start date to be prior to the beginning of November. So if we didn't vote on it until November, then the start date would have to be after that time.
Okay, I do appreciate that. Again, the current motion doesn't have a start date labeled to it, so I don't see, are you asking for an adjustment to the current motion on the table or for a new motion?
I'm asking to defer it. So defer the motion until a later time.
Trustee Daniele?
Thank you. And as you can probably imagine, I've been through one or two boundary reviews. And I understand where you're coming from, I really do, but unfortunately I'm not going to be able to support this motion this evening, because I know how much work it is for assign a superintendent together, put together the steering committee, pull together all the people, and in order to have it back to us in a timely manner. And I don't see it as being significantly different than all the other ones that we're going to be passing tonight. So I am terribly sorry, but from my standpoint, I'm not really understanding the reasoning of this, because the same could be said for any of the others. Well, we'd like to give the community time to give us input, but the time for that will be coming along. So again, I do understand the position you're in, and I apologize for it, but I will not be able to support it this evening.
Trustee Harvey-Hope?
Thank you. I think that if the idea is through you, Madam Chair, to the General Manager, we need, based on the LTAP, to have this boundary review. Yes? Yes. He's nodding his head. Okay. So, so it needs to go ahead. So the question is, when does it start? So I think perhaps the better idea would be, in order to have enough time to gather the information and to allow people to start thinking about it, it would make more sense to put a definitive, after the election start, on the formation of the steering committee, so that the steering committee would not start until November, meaning that the trustees that would be on the steering committee we would know who they were after the election. That would not prevent staff from accumulating the statistics, the enrollment data, all of that other stuff in October. It would also give the neighborhood time to discuss it. But nothing's going to be decided until March, April anyway, if then. And the steering committee being not allowed to be formed until November in this particular case in order to ensure the concerns are met, I think that might be a better way than deciding in November to vote yes when we kind of all think we have to vote yes at some point anyway. So I would rather say yes now with a adjustment inside this particular sub-motion for a clarification that the committee and the people involved in the committee, i.e. the trustee for the area or the non-area trustee, would be chosen in November.
So right now we're discussing the deferral, so we'd have to.
Right, so I'm suggesting that the deferral is not necessary because I would suggest a friendly amendment to the original motion.
Okay, noted. Will Trustee Collard.
Thank you. I'm echoing the comments from Trustee Harvey Hope and Trustee Daniele. I believe that what is needed there is a start date, not a deferral, because what staff does in the next 6 weeks is start working on this, as opposed to not getting a chance to start working on it until after a motion is passed in November. The steering committee likely wouldn't be set up until December or January, according to Manager Renzella, and so that would be after the new term has started. So I think what we're really looking for here is a start date change or addition to the motion rather than a deferral date, because I don't want to cause any delay in all of the background work that staff has to do in order to get this going and to actually have all the information available when the steering committee does meet.
Trustee Amos.
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I have nothing to say. Was my name on the question list?
Yes.
List? Oh, okay. Well, it's not supposed to be. I'm glad you can hear me now, though. I've been trying.
Good to know. Trustee Pappan.
Through the chair, I could live with a definite start date after the beginning of November. So, okay.
Okay. So are you withdrawing your motion to defer then? Okay. And making a motion to amend. Okay, going back to the regular speakers list. Okay, so I'm just looking at this particular motion with an expected start date of after the beginning with an expected start date after the beginning of November, and an expected completion date no later than June 19, 2019. Would you like me to read the whole thing? Are we good? We're good? Trustee Gray, you had to...
Just a point of clarification, does that amendment that we've just made, does that then apply to not just number 3, but also number 4 and 5?
It's just number 3.
Just number 3. Thank you.
Okay, we have more people on the speakers list. Trustee Harvey Hope.
So to clarify, that means that we can't start it before November 1st, but we can delay starting it, the formation of the BRSC specifically, until December, January. So because you're allowed to start it early, the BRSC is what we're pushing to November. Staff still has the right to accumulate data, knowing that it is happening.
Through the chair to Trustee Harvey Hope, you're correct in that. My only concern about starting the steering committee and maybe I can get some clarification from the associate director and the chair, is that you want to ensure that a trustee is in place, and I believe the trustees are sworn in at the first meeting in December. So really, you cannot form that steering committee until after the trustees are sworn in. But it would not preclude staff from starting right now, gathering the data, getting all the information that we typically get ready for the steering committee, so that they would have information available to them for the first start. Hopefully, in once they're the trustees are in the new. Assuming what's going to happen, but once the trustee and the new board is sworn in December.
Clarification? Sure.
So what I meant was, I understand that the point is, if by, the circumstances being what they are, not changing it to December leaves some wiggle room, depending on the results of the election, but the staff can still work. So the way it's set now, it does its job, and it allows the maximum flexibility based on who's available and who wins their seats, with the proviso that it will probably not officially start until December, but people could start thinking about it in November.
Okay, Trustee Gray. Okay, Trustee Daniele.
Staff can work on it. That doesn't necessarily say that they will, given everything else that they have going on. And that's one of my concerns, is that it won't be a priority because it's something that's not staying there. My other concern, again, this comes to my experience from boundary reviews, and I know Superintendent Truffin and I, the last two, we had difficulties scheduling meetings. By the time that you have to bring in everybody that has to bring in those time, it took weeks to pull all the meetings together and things like that. So I have a concern because November was basically a lame duck board. And so pushing it to December, and boundary reviews will involve staffing and things like that. So for me, it's a real concern putting this off. So I just, from my experience.
So are you asking for a vote on the amendment then?
I am.
Go ahead, Associate Director Vogt.
I'd just like to, thank you, Madam Chair. I'd just like to reiterate for trustees, staff can work with this date. We've got some things happening earlier in the school year. We're not going to dig into this until that time anyway. It's not an issue in terms of staff workload, that sort of thing.
Go ahead, Trustee Daniele.
Thank you. With that clarification, then I withdraw my request for a vote on the amendment.
Okay, so seeing no more people on the speakers list, we'll move forward with the resolution as amended. Okay, we'll do a motion to amend, just for formality's sake. Okay, so I just have to find it on here. Okay, I can't find it on here. Okay, I have found it. All those in favor?
Yes.
Okay, here we go. And that doesn't pass unanimously. So have you got that? Okay, thank you. But it does pass. So we will now vote on the actual amended motion. All those in favor?
Yes.
Okay. And that passes unanimously. Thank you very much. Okay, now we are on to the fourth item, Be it resolved that the Halton District School Board directs staff to undertake a secondary school boundary review for the new Milton Southwest No. 1 High School with an expected completion date of no later than June 2019. So, moved by Trustee Chowdhury, seconded by Trustee Daniele. Are there any questions, comments, debates? Seeing none. All those in favor?
Yes.
Thank you. That passes unanimously. Moving on to the last one. Be it resolved that the Halton District School Board directs staff to undertake an elementary and school boundary review for the Samuel Curtis Estate Subdivision ERA 111, which will include schools in ERA 103, Pineland Public School and Mohawk Gardens and SRA 100, Nelson High School, as well as schools in ERA 112, Eastview Public School, Gladys Spears Public School, Pine Grove Public School, and SRA 102, T.A. Blake Locke High School, with an expected completion date of no later than June 2019. Moved by Vice Chair Al Harrison, and I know it was seconded by Trustee Amos.
Yes, please.
Okay. I see Trustee Collard's on the speaker's list. Go ahead.
Thank you. I'm just noticing that the motion reads undertake an elementary and school boundary. Is that supposed to be and secondary? Thank you.
Everybody agree that that's okay to put in? Thank you. Vice Chair Al Harrison.
Thank you very much. Through you, Madam Chair, the number of students in this area that are currently directed to Burlington schools, it's approximately 40 at this point in time. So in moving forward, I don't know whether that number will be a little higher or a little lower, but assuming it's in that neighborhood and an earlier completion date would allow for consideration during staffing, for example. I'm not asking for an earlier completion date by any stretch, given everything that's on the agenda here, but I just wonder, given the small number of students and depending on the outcome, whether you foresee that there will still need to be that year gap in terms of implementation.
Associate Director Bogue.
It is, thank you, through you, Madam Chair, to Vice Chair Al Harrison. It is a smaller number of students. It would still be advisable, I think, for us to be planning for a September 2020 so that we do account for those kids and where they will be going, because it will have staffing impacts, even though it won't be as big as some other boundary reviews. So that was the thinking behind that timeline.
Yeah, follow up. Go ahead.
Sure. I just wanted to mention that Trustee Amos's community is aware of the earlier boundary review, and they're excited and supportive of that to happen. Thanks.
Trustee Harvey Hope.
To follow up on that theme of not a lot of students, just to put out the thought that perhaps as you get into it, for the secondary students, those in grade 8 going to grade 9, if it becomes, depending on the actual numbers and the actual students, if it is to determine that they would be going back to Blake Locke, perhaps some extraordinary optional attendance might be in order to be allowed to be taken so that they could start at Blake Locke in their grade 9 year. It wouldn't necessarily go the other way because Bateman being in transition anyway. So I'm just saying, depending on the circumstances and depending on the children, I'm sure the staff involved in the BRSC will be able to see who these individuals actually are and whether there's some extraordinary exceptions to be allowed if it looks like it's heading that direction, because in order to have a child go through 2 or 3 transitions that are probably unnecessary, and with Blakelock having the room, so it's a possibility just to keep in mind.
Associate Director Bowe.
I would agree with Trustee Harvey Hope, and the steering committee would certainly look at those particular students, the high school age students in particular, where we have a little bit more flexibility, and could make some recommendations, but would be cognizant of that potentially unique small group.
Okay, thank you. Seeing no other speakers on the speakers list, we'll move to vote on this particular recommendation. All those in favor?
Yes.
Thank you. And that passes unanimously. Thank you very much. Okay, we are now up to communications to the board. So first off, we have number 5.1, student trustee reports. Trustees Connor and Mung, do you have a report for us this evening?
We do. Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm going to begin this report tonight just on an update of our student governance policy we plan to bring to the board in the next several months. Since our last board meeting and even into the summer, we met with many interested partners, student councils, former student senators, student trustee mentors to come up with a clearer and more concise draft that we will bring for the Student Senate for consultation, so our student governance policy. Once the Student Senate is assembled on the 25th, as Trustee Meng will talk about in a few moments, a committee will be headed by myself and Trustee Meng of the Student Senate, and we will discuss the student governance policy, and any member of the Student Senate is welcome to be a member of that committee and join in consultation and review. Feedback is always welcome. The committee will have a timeline of approximately 3 months until the November Student Senate meeting to propose a draft to the at-large Student Senate, at which point we don't know how long that will go, those discussions at the at-large Student Senate meetings. That meeting, the November Student Senate meeting, will be primarily focused on the work the committee is focused on to try and get a timely deliverance of this policy to the board. Just some highlights of the policy we hope are included by the Student Senate are a overhaul of the existing student trustee policy. There are some things that we think we need to repeal and replace, so that will be the student trustee policy. It will be included in the student governance policy almost entirely. So just for reference, there's only 2 or 3 seconds that will actually be changed from the student trustee policy. It'll just be repealed and replaced into the new document. We want to create a student council or student council leadership organization in every high school in the Halton District School Board to allow for local student voice to be heard in school affairs. The way we're going to do this is we're going to provide a very vague description in this policy which qualifies as a student council. Those terms are up for debate, but in the policy draft we have right now, I think it has to have at least 1 elected student to represent the organization, a minimum of 5 members and a staff advisor, and a permission from the principal. We also want, for these elected students, we want to create a president's council, which will bring together these local student governments to talk about internal issues and how we can be better student leaders inside the system. And finally, in my section, a description of the Student Senate's new governance structure, executive committees, as well as our objective and mission statements will be included in this governance policy.
So thank you, Trustee Clark. So what I want to talk about is a Student Senate update and as well as a drug policy review. So to begin with the Student Senate update, so our first Student Senate meeting is the September 25th at 6 p.m. at the J.W. Singleton Center. And tomorrow is the final day that we'd like principals to send in their senators for the first inaugural Student Senate meeting. However, we are allowing them to also send it until the 25th, assuming that they didn't send it on September 20th. And also, we made an application form for those who are interested in being part of the executive committee for the Student Senate. And In preparation for the first Senate meeting, we have already chosen a secretary designate to write down the minutes for us. And something that's different from the years before is that we are actually having the elementary students and the secondary students combined into one meeting from 6 to 9 p.m. rather than from last year, which it was divided based on the grades. And as usual, dinner will be served. And to continue on with the drug policy review, so special thanks to Superintendent Podrzeberic for his help and getting us up to date with what the working group has done. And right now we'll be continuing the work of previous student trustees and recommending some of the major ideas to be implemented in the appropriate policies. And the drug policy working committee was made of trustees, staff, students, and the community partners. And in the coming weeks, the Student Senate will be given a chance to formally be consulted with on the recommendations of the working group, and which is the last step planned of this consultation process. And after the Student Senate has had a chance to be consulted with, and we have conferred with all necessary partners, we will bring a list of recommendations that all parties have agreed on. And on a happy note, Trustee Clark and I tomorrow will be going to We Day at the Scotiabank Arena. And yeah, that's all.
Do we have any questions or comments for our student trustee report? Well, I can see it's very thorough. So thank you very much for your report and looking forward to future ones. Okay, so we have no action items scheduled for October the 3rd. And we have one information item this evening, number 531, Oakville Secondary Gifted Program Boundary Adjustments, report number 18122. Superintendent Zonnefeld, thank you very much. Welcome.
Thank you. Good evening, trustees. You have before you a report on some adjustments to the Oakville Secondary Gifted Program boundary, and these were shared at SEAC last week, and were well received there. I thought you might want to hear that, and so I'll just dive into some of the details of the report, which you can see on screen here. So very quickly in the background, you can see that we have quite an imbalance of our enrollments across the programs in the three schools. These boundaries were set quite a few years ago and are in need of some adjustment. And also you'll note that we have a capacity challenge at Abbey Park. So on the screen right now, if you look at the, can I make this a bit larger? No. So if you look at the 2018 numbers right now, look down into the gifted numbers across the three schools here. I'm showing you with the mouse. You can see Abbey Park at 240 and the Ridge at 94 and OT at 51. There's quite an imbalance there in terms of those numbers. Also, you'll notice on this table, if you look at Abbey Park all the way across at their OTG currently sits at 873, and yet their enrollment, you can see, is projected to go over 1,400 and stay quite high for quite a period of time. So those are the two issues that we're trying to address with this change. So, and you can see now in this map the current boundary for students attending each of the three secondary gifted programs. So Abbey Parks is obviously far too large. You can see here. You can imagine, even just the busing distances for a number of these students. And so, but these once again were drawn many years ago before we had these programs really hadn't grown as that much and established, nor had Oakville grown that much. So now we have the situation where we need to address these challenges. So further along here, you can see the new boundaries, and they are highlighted across the top of the chart. So you can see that on the very top, it shows you that Abbey Park will include students from the Abbey Park English boundary and from the Garth Webb English boundary. Same with Iroquois Ridge. You can see there'll be the Iroquois Ridge English as well as White Oaks, and that Oakville Trafalgar will have OT as well as TA Blakelock. When you look at this table, you can see the 2018 numbers, but I encourage you to think ahead that grade 9, with these changes, the change would take effect for September of 2019, and it would only start with the grade 9 students. So these numbers here that you see really should look forward to when we get to all 4 grades in those schools, and now so look forward to 2022. And now when you look down here at the gifted program, look at those numbers. Now we have 153 at Abbey Park, 159 at Iroquois Ridge, and 127 at Oakville Trafalgar. Far more balanced. And then if you look across Abbey Park at those numbers, you can see that by 2022 they're down close to 1,100, which helps alleviate some of that pressure at Abbey Park as well. So, and then take a look at the boundary map. Here you can see now you have a more balanced geographic area for the 3 programs. The one area you might be concerned about is you look at the catchment area for the Ridge and you think, wow, that's pretty large now. I will mention or remind trustees that you know that we are intending to build another secondary school along Dundas, and anticipating the possibility that we may be opening a 4th site for the secondary gifted program in Oakville. So although that looks like quite a large area for Iroquois Ridge right now, that may be have some relief as time moves forward also. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Trustee Collard.
Thank you. Through you to Superintendent Zonnefeld. Thank you for bringing this report. It was very well received by SEAC members, in particular by the Association for Bright Children members. They were very pleased with the balance and with your response to their questions on this, and I'm supportive of this. I know we're not voting on it tonight, but I just want you to know that I'm very impressed with the way you've managed to balance this.
Trustee L. Harrison.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Chair. My question is, when will families affected by this change be notified? I understand that, this group of students sometimes has challenges with change, and some may be already forward-looking for a number of years to the high school that they would be attending. So I guess my perspective, well, it's a question. My perspective is, the sooner they can get this information, the better. Thanks.
Through the chair to Trustee L. Harrison, staff, you're aware that families are getting information in a number of ways around grade 9 and beyond. So every fall, specifically for families with students in gifted programs, we send information letters about future program locations for the next year. Those go home in October. So all families of students in gifted programs across the whole board get those letters. So the letters, we've already made changes to those in anticipation of this change. So those are ready to go for October. Also, there are grade 8 to 9 information nights for parents and students to attend in all of the high schools. They host those nights. This change of these adjustments of these boundaries will be included in those information nights as well.
Trustee Daniele.
Thank you very much. Is it possible for you to go back to the chart of numbers, please?
Of the changed boundaries?
The previous slide to this. And I applaud in 2022 that balance of 153, 159, 127 is actually incredible. No, I need it bigger again, please.
Oh, sorry.
My question is, when I look along the bottom of the numbers of gifted students, Next year is 452, but by 2022, it drops by nearly 50, and then it keeps dropping from 485 to 439 to 402 to 378 to 377. And I'm wondering why we're seeing such a significant drop in the number of gifted secondary students.
Great question. Thank you, Trustee Daniele. So prior to this, our planning department didn't project numbers of students in our self-contained programs, secondary and elementary. So they're a fairly small portion of our population, but they didn't have a method and algorithm to do that. So they have begun doing that specifically for this report. We asked them to work on this, which they did last spring and into the summer. And so the projection that you see there is for those first 5 years that they've done that. So you can see that number grow. In previous reports, you have just seen this year's number carried across the whole way because they didn't project. So they've done that for that period of time, but they haven't gone beyond that. So what you're seeing a decline because you're seeing students leave the program but not come in. So they haven't added that into the projection yet. And also, I think we would all say we'd expect this to grow simply by the growth in population in Oakville. So we all know that. But thank you for pointing out that that growth isn't reflected there because planning is still working on projecting that further.
Go ahead.
So given that we don't have those planning numbers, how do we ensure that the balance numbers that you have stay balanced?
Great, thank you through the chair for that question as well. Part of it is monitoring on our part. So that's ongoing work we do. We continue to look at these numbers to see, we've made these boundary changes, forecasting ahead as best we can what we anticipate in terms of population growth. But we will continue to monitor and work with planning around trying to anticipate growth in population and growth in uptake in these programs.
Trustee Harvey Hope.
So on that point, before I get to my question, so they don't take students currently in grade 1 and project out 9 years and say they'll be in secondary gifted, because then you'd have a lot more than 5 years going forward.
Correct. Not yet.
Okay.
They're working on that.
Okay. So I would presume that might be a start, because that at least gives you, once they're registered as a gifted student, they might continue. My question would be, from the population in Oakville, if I remember correctly, primary gifted are in Pilgrimwood, and they have been staying there a lot longer than the original. It's not 1 to 4, it's 1 to 6 or 7 now. And then we have the Morden intermediate, which is first time placement in grade 5 through to 8. So we actually have situations where we have students in grade 7 in both places, depending on when they started into the gifted program. So for students in Morden that would otherwise go to OT, they have traditionally come back to OT anyway. But for those students that would have gone to Blakelock, which would have meant them going to Abbey Park, now they're going to come to OT for the secondary gifted placement. So I'm wondering whether we know what the breakdown is of the students in Oakville, in Morden, in the south, and or Pilgrimwood, that will be inordinately affected by all of a sudden going south versus north. Because if their parents have been used to driving them to Pilgrimwood and then they would have gone to Abbey Park, now it's Pilgrimwood and, oh gee, now you're going to OT. And I'm wondering if you've got an idea of the effect on that, and whether or not in some cases you're going to have families either saying, can you please switch my child to Morden for intermediate because I'm also trying to get the child to OT, those kinds of complications, because it's a distinct difference on where you're sending people. So I'm just wondering if you looked at the demographics of the populations of the gifted elementaries.
Through the chair to Trustee Harvey Hope, we planning created a number of scenarios for us, and during that process did basically a dot map breakdown of where every student that's in a pre-gifted program currently in elementary, where they reside, and where they would be currently attending, and then where they would attend through this. So we looked at all that in quite a bit of detail. That's what helped us decide on these boundaries as part of that work. And then also being conscious that through this process, there will be a number of families for whom their child in that's already in the high school program, they will have a younger sibling potentially coming that they would want them to attend the same school. So you'll notice in the report, I think I mentioned in the report that option for families to be able to make that request so that we can keep them together during this transition period.
Trustee Oliver.
Thank you, Chair. Through you to Superintendent Zonneveld. Thank you. This is a very timely report. As trustee for Abbey Park High School, I've been watching the enrollment numbers, and this year we are at 437 students above the underground capacity, which is about 50%. So that's a pretty significant over-enrollment. And this has been noted to me by families at the school, and certainly even through students. I had the pleasure of speaking to a grade 12 law class at Abbey Park, where I must say we had a very interesting and engaging conversation about a number of topics. But there was a student, Andre, who raised this as an issue with me. He pointed out the high enrollment and over-enrollment over the underground capacity at the high school. And, you know, himself was reflecting around what could be done to kind of, you know, assist with those numbers, including some boundary changes for, and for special programs. So I'll be pleased to report back to him that we are looking at this. I think this will help with the population counts at the school, and hopefully going forward as well. And I'm pleased to also see the balancing of the secondary gifted program amongst the 3 high schools in Oakville. And hopefully students will be able to attend the program a little bit closer to their own home high school. So thank you.
Thank you. And seeing no other speakers on the speakers list, thank you very much for all of that information. Okay. Are there any notices of motion? Seeing none. Next is the director's report. Associate Director Bogue.
Thanks, Madam Chair. I have only one item. I think we lost Trustee Amos, did we? One item to report today. This is a good news story. This is a congratulations to Amy Korzak. Amy is our president of our local early childhood educators union, which is part of ETFO. I just wanted to read, she was recognized at a provincial ETFO event from the president of ETFO, Sam Hammond. Amy's passion for human rights and women's issues has motivated her to do remarkable work for our federation. And I would just add that we thank Amy as well for her support of our early childhood educators in helping ensure our kids get exactly what they need in kindergarten. So congratulations to Amy Korzak. And that's the only item that I have.
Okay, great. Anybody have any questions on the director's report? No? Okay. So next we're up to communications from the chair. I don't have a lot, though I am, and I understand a few other trustees in the room will be attending the Women in Skilled Trades celebration, graduation celebration tomorrow. I'm especially excited because
This is a recording.
coming from a technical background myself, I always love to see more women in those kinds of areas. So I'm really looking forward to it. And tomorrow is also WE Day, and I understand there will be some participation from some trustees attending. So, for all those students who have earned their spot, congratulations, and I hope you have a wonderful day. And now we're up to committee reports. Trustee Gray.
Thank you very much. Just wanted to report that the audit committee did meet yesterday, and some of the highlights of the audit committee involved the installation of the chair and the vice chair. Congratulations to Amy Collard, who will become the vice chair of the audit committee, and I was happy to take the position on as chair. So, number two was this is an awareness piece that in consultation with the chair of the board, the audit committee has requested consideration of an additional board meeting on the 28th of November, and that would be so that the financial statements could be dealt with by the term of this Board of Trustees. Leading up to that, we will make, or we plan to make mention of this at the November 7 board meeting before the next audit committee meeting, which is on November 13. So the public will know on November 7th that we are wishing to do that. And then on the 21st, the Board of Trustees would then have this report brought to them, and then again meeting then on the 28th to go over and approve that materials. Third thing is that the Halton District School Board is actively recruiting for an internal audit manager, and I'll be looking for an expression of interest for any trustee who would like to assist with that interview for that position. And coming soon to a future board meeting is a presentation on the reporting changes due to the PSAB requiring trustees a new way of doing business with trustees in a conflict of interest with vendors, and there'll be much more information shared at a meeting coming up soon on that. So that's from the audit committee of last night. I don't know if either Trustee Harvey Hope or Trustee Collard would like to add anything on that. No? Okay. Thank you.
Okay, Vice Chair Al Harrison.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Chair, I have two committee updates. Firstly, the environmental management team met last week, and there's a lot of really interesting and great things going on in that area that I wanted to share with you. Firstly, there's been work done with the food provider to move away from the single-use plastic straws. My understanding is that either already or in the near future, they'll be moving to on-demand paper straws that will be housed behind the counters, if I'm not mistaken. A prototype environmental report card was shared with the group that would allow each school to see how they're doing in terms of energy, water consumption, waste generation, recycling, and so on. So that prototype is being fine-tuned and then would be shared with the school as a baseline that they could sort of track their eco initiatives against. And let's see here. That sort of builds on all of the good work that's been done around energy retrofits in the schools that are starting to have a real impact in terms of the consumption and money savings. And I understand that, there's some thought about how can that money then be reinvested in terms of additional savings and eco initiatives. And lastly, you'll recall, especially earlier in our term, we talked a lot about active transportation and in an ongoing way. And the board is part of the active transportation hub in the region. And there's going to be a website that's launched in October around Walk to School Day and Month. And what's on that website, it's really neat. So by school, you can go in and take a look at a map. It's kind of like a heat map that shows, okay, this is a 5-minute walk radius. This is a 10-minute walk radius. And, people walk at different speeds, so it's a generalization, but still it gives a sense of, how far you can get in that 10 minutes, and hopefully is a real motivator for people to get on board with active transportation. So I'll send that link around and it will be advertised broadly. And I think I'll have to go on the list again for the other committee. Thank you. Sorry so much on the eco front. Thanks.
Trustee Collard.
Thank you. I just wanted to report on the SEAC meeting that was held last Tuesday. We had a report on the Oakville Secondary Gifted, which was received here this evening. We also had some conversation about the end of term, acknowledging that November will be our last meeting, and we've had an adjustment to our October meeting date. It was originally scheduled for the 9th of October, and now will be on the 2nd of October. There will be no December meeting, and the January meeting will be the professional development and training for the new SEAC. And it will be probably held either late January or early February.
Okay, Trustee Oliver.
Thank you. Just an update that the first meeting of the Mental Health Steering Committee will take place on October 16th, and I'm looking forward to continuing with the great work of that committee.
Trustee Reynolds.
Thank you. I actually have a question for Vice Chair Al Harrison regarding the Environmental Committee, if I may. I'm just wondering, I've heard so many great things from this committee, and I would love to be able to report back to our school communities just what this committee has done on a system-wide perspective. I love the fact that schools will be having access to what is happening in their school in terms of their energy consumption. But I'm just wondering if that might be something that committee might want to consider, because I think it's great work.
I will certainly make that request of Suzanne Burwell, our coordinator, and hopefully that will come to pass. Because I should also say that engaging the school communities is really critical, because the committee also talked about a number of things that can't happen without partnership. And those are things like reconsideration of pricing for events like dance-a-thons, where we're selling a lot of single-use, glow-in-the-dark, battery-intensive, blinky items that are often tossed aside, in very short order. So maybe we can also include kind of some of that messaging as well.
Trustee Gray.
Thank you very much. Within the last 2 weeks, I've had the chance to be at two 7:30 a.m. meetings in Oakville for the Halton Learning Foundation, and I would say that they're off to a very, very busy start. And this is worthwhile sharing with all the trustees that after 9 days of school, and that was till last Friday. The first 9 days of school, the HLF had supported 56 students at a cost of almost $12,000. This is a 14% increase in the number of students over last year requiring support in terms of returning to school and having the necessary items that they need to begin. So I think that we'll continue to monitor the work of this great organization as it supports all of our students across the region in Halton. But we do have to be conscious that the increase in need, it continues to grow across the region. Thank you.
Vice Chair Al Harrison.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Chair, I'd like to report on our Committee of the Whole meeting that took place last Wednesday, and one of the focuses of that meeting was the renewal of our bylaws, and those bylaws should be landing here at the board table in very short order. I understand trustees will receive a revised version tomorrow. And then going forward, and as in partnership with the bylaws, we'll be looking at our policies, a number of policies at our next meeting, which will take place next week. And then we have I sent out an email to the group today to see about rescheduling our October meeting for October the 24th from October the 10th. And I didn't hear any opposition to that. However, if you do have concerns, perhaps we can talk after the meeting so we can get all of our dates nailed down to the end of term. And then lastly, there is a motion that comes from the committee related to the appointment of Trustee Chowdhury and trustee Collard, given that vacancies needed to be filled with respect to Kim Graves' departure. So the motion is as follows. Be it resolved that the Halton District School Board approve the following committee appointments, filling the vacancies left by the departure of former trustee Kim Graves, with the appointments effective September 5th, 2018, for the duration of this current trustee term. Audit Committee, Amy Collard. Special Education Advisory Committee, to fill out the 4-year term, Ali Chowdhury. And Finance and Accountability Standing Committee, Ali Chowdhury as Vice Chair. So, and I so move. Is there a second? Sorry.
I see Trustee Harvey Hope would like to second that. Okay, is there any discussion at all on that motion? Oh, yes. I guess we need to waive the rules first. Motion to waive the rules. Thank you, Trustee Harvey Hope. Is there a seconder? Trustee Collard. Okay, so any discussion on waiving the rules? Seeing none. Okay, here we go. All those in favor? Waiving the rules.
I do recall making a notice of motion to do this 2 weeks ago.
That's true. Okay, we're still missing a few. Trustee Reynolds, your thoughts? Okay. Thank you very much. And that passes, but not unanimously. You did, oh, okay. So that does pass unanimously, actually. It was a fat finger kind of thing. Okay, so now we're on to the motion. We'll keep Vice Chair Al Harrison making the motion, seconded by Trustee Harvey Hope. And there's no one on the speakers list, so all those in favor?
Yes.
Oh, Trustee Amos has returned.
Yep. I've been here for a while.
Oh, okay. We missed your last vote.
No, I said yes.
Oh, we didn't hear you.
No, sorry.
Okay. So it's unanimous with Trustee Amos. So this is also unanimous. Thank you very much. Okay. Back to any committee reports. None. I have one, and that's just that the PIC conference is coming up on October the 13th. Please mark your calendars, everybody. Free conference, free child minding, lots and lots of information, some lunch, great great keynote speakers over at Garth Webb. And it's most of the day affair. You can register through our website. So please do. I've attended a number of these, and I've always come up with new information. And there's information from the little ones all the way to students that are heading out of our system. So please take advantage of that free day, free information, and everything that I mentioned. And registration is open now. Okay. Now we're on to trustee questions and comments. Trustee Gray.
Thank you very much through the chair. During the summer, a constituent in Halton Hills, specifically the Limehouse area, made me aware of the community chatter around the notion that Limehouse would be closing in the near future. This narrative surfaces from time to time, and we know it not to be the case. But this narrative was furthered just last week by comments made on the Halton Hills Ward 1 Acton Municipal Election Facebook site, where, in reference to school closures, it was stated that 3 schools in Halton Hills, Limehouse, Pineview, and Joseph Gibbons were on the radar at the board for having less than optimal enrollment numbers. This information, as you might imagine, is quite upsetting and detrimental to the students and staff and members of these communities. I would ask this question at this time to the Associate Director of Education, David Bogue, and Superintendent of Education, Scott Podjabaric, and for the public record, is the board planning school closures in Halton Hills? And I would ask I would respectfully request that the responses made to this question be noted in the minutes of tonight's meeting.
Thanks, Trustee Gray, and through you, Madam Chair, to all trustees. There's not been any conversation or discussion about school closures in Halton Hills. In fact, if I recall correctly, our current LTAP actually shows that there's predicted significant growth in 2 out of those 3 schools with the new development plan for Georgetown. I'm not sure where that information has come from, but we've not had any conversations. And I'll just look over to Superintendent Podjabaric, who knows the area a little better than I, to see if he has anything to add.
Thank you. I'd just like to echo comments of Associate Director Bogue. There is no plans to close or even review any of the enrollments for Halton Hills schools. I am aware of the post that Trustee Gray mentions. It is unfortunate because they align the comments with my name, and so I just want to note, and trustees are aware that I am very aware of our closure processes and our reviews. And I wouldn't ever speak with them lightly or flippantly. So the comments posted are specious in nature and totally inaccurate. It's unfortunate.
Thank you very much. Trustee Clark.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to speak about the Nelson Floodlight football game I attended last Friday night. I just want to say it was a fantastic event. Last year's Floodlight got a little bit rowdy, but we managed as a student body to pull ourselves together. It was a fantastic event, great turnout. And Nelson won in the end, so go Lords. So I just want to say congratulations to all the students that were involved in the Student Athletic Association, because they did an outstanding job. So I just want to give a special shout out to them.
Okay, Trustee Daniele.
Thank you. I also have 2 shout-outs to give. I'd like to sincerely express my thanks to Superintendent Maya. I'm not going to get your last name right. I apologize. And I'm Italian, and I should. Because complaints have come up at my school, concerns have been raised, and the speed with which you're acting on them is incredible, and I just want to tell you how much I appreciate that. I know you have over 100 schools to be looking after, and somehow it looks like you managed to be at each and every one of them every single day. So I just wanted to thank you sincerely for that. And then my second shout out goes to my new colleague and friend, Trustee Chowdhury. It takes a lot to be involved in your community, and it takes a lot to be involved in your community